Shalom, shalom. Call halal Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakar Kodash. Double honors once again of the Apostles' Great Millstone who told me this truth. All right. Salutations to Akim out there on the highways and byways who are also, all right, preaching this truth, all honesty and sincerity, all right, in hopes of waking up the remaining, hopefully elect. All right. I've got a little fan on here circulating the air. Hopefully, it's not too much interference. I ran across this article. It says the monument to racist bigger than any Confederate statue. All right, and this is from the goodmenproject.com. And this is a quote from Theodore, aka Teddy Roosevelt. It says 19th century democracy needs no more complete vindication for its existence than the fact that it has kept for the white race, Edomites, the best portion of the New World surface. And all you have to do is study the United States interactions with the tribes of Gad and Reuben, aka the North American Indians. All right. Here are these four bastards here. All right. It says it's only fitting that the site of Mount Rushmore is in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And when you study that, you find out that, well, there was gold there. All right. It says the land was granted to the Lakota people in the Treaty of Fort Laramie in perpetuity in the year 1868. Like every other treaty with Native Americans, Gad and Reuben, it was broken and the government took it back. And they have the nerve to call Gad and Reuben, what was the nickname given? Indian givers. All right. Mount Rushmore and the four presidents selected is supposed to represent America's birth, growth, development, and preservation. The sculptor, Gutzon Borglum, had done earlier work with Confederate statues, and started work on Stone Mountain in Georgia, where he was quite friendly with Klan supporters of the project. He later fell out with others in a clash of wills and left Georgia permanently, having developed the skills to sculpt on a gigantic scale. All right. It says Mount Rushmore didn't have an especially grand purpose. It was built in order to attract tourists to South Dakota. All right. That's it. For money. It says initial thoughts were to include Western heroes like explorers Lewis and Clark, Buffalo Bill Cody, and Lakota Chief Red Cloud. Borglum dismissed that idea and chose the four presidents. There are those who would dispute my characterization of the four as racist. George Washington was America's first president. Thomas Jefferson was the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, which stated, all men are created equal. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and Teddy Roosevelt ushered in many of America's progressive policies. These men have a long list of accomplishments, yet they were racist, each and every one, and that is true. This is going into the hypocrisy of these so-called white people, these Edomites, all right? George Washington, here we go. Perhaps George Washington couldn't tell a lie, yet the suggestion his well-known dentures were made of wood certainly is one. His teeth were made from a number of sources, including human teeth taken from his slaves. History has a way of literally whitewashing the past of the founding fathers, of course. That's the whole idea. We have to, and as you research further, you're going to find out all these individuals. I mean, you got to, America and Australia share what in common with both of them are convicts and criminals that came out of England, all right? And it's no coincidence that when you go into the history of Australia, you find all kind of atrocities, all right, that mirror, and some are different, but still, as far as the natives, all right, the original peoples that occupied the land. And they always, talking about Esau Edom, the so-called white man, he always dismisses that fact, of course, because that's an embarrassment, all right? that's going to tarnish his otherwise pristine image. And he never wanted that. That's what's so satisfying about present day, because with technology as it is, and hey, house is divided, as it says in Mark 3rd chapter, all right, everything's coming out. Psalm 64 and 8, they're telling on each other, all right? All these little secrets and things that they thought were locked away, all right, they're coming out. And it's an embarrassment, all right? Keeping going on, it says, after George died, it says, let me start over. It says, history has a way of literally whitewashing the past of the founding fathers. In many sources, Washington is credited with freeing his slaves without mentioning that it was after his death, and because of a quirk in the law, did not include his wife Martha's slaves. After George died, Martha quickly realized the only thing standing between her slaves and their freedom was her death, so she freed those she could as well. And something else he didn't get into, maybe when you go down here. No, it doesn't, but there was a particular law that stated, let's see, what was it? In order for his, he moved in one particular slave around every 6 months. Something about after so long, the slave would be recognized as, I got to go back into it. I can't remember the exact details off the top of my head. But he was a devil, talking about Washington. It says Washington's slaves were subject to correction at his estate in Mount Vernon, but history manages to put a gloss on that as well. When a slave woman named Charlotte was deemed impudent, she was beaten with a whip, a penalty Washington deemed very proper. Because it was her first whipping in 14 years, we're told how lenient the kind Washington was. Truth be told, Washington regularly had his slaves whipped, beaten, and he actually inspired to circumvent laws to ensure his slaves didn't go free. That's what I was trying to was alluding to, all right? He would transport them to other locations. Here's another devil, Thomas Jefferson. Historians tell us how conflicted Jefferson was about slavery. He wanted so badly to end it, though he owned over 600 slaves in his lifetime. Notably one he started sleeping with when she was 14 years old, and with whom he had several children, Sally Hemings. The Jefferson family and his estate fought for decades to fight the lie, as they deemed it, that Thomas Jefferson fathered Hemings' children, blaming another relative, but time and DNA won out, and now the family acknowledges the relationship. The tour of Monticello now includes the adjoining room with the connecting door where Hemings slept. See? What I just stated earlier about these things coming out, and it's forcing these devils to admit, all right? That's why they're trying to erase certain things out of these history books in these, in the public fool system, all right? Were that the worst Jefferson did, he might be no worse than any other Virginia slaveholder. But Jefferson did much more. More than any other person, Jefferson is responsible for establishing the model for domestic slave breeding, which is exactly what it sounds like, and shaping the Constitution and further law to make slave owners in Virginia, of which he was one, and Maryland, the primary beneficiaries. Again, this is something we touched on in camp Wednesday evening. All right. The system of slavery that our people were forced to undergo was totally different than any other in world history. And it's still ongoing. Because what people fail to acknowledge and admit to, all right, this is ingrained in this society. All right. You're talking about this American Edomite devil is a peculiar Edomite devil. He stands out among the other Edomites. They don't even like him. All right? And the atrocities committed on our people. Let's get scripture real quick. All right, whoops. Wrong one. All right. Again, dealing with prophecy, it identifies who certain people are, but course, some people don't want to do that because then they would have to admit. This is Jeremiah 15. Actually, before we go there, let's go here real quick. This is Daniel chapter 9, verse 12. And it says, "And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. Esau, Edom, so-called white man, for under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem." Remember, Jerusalem is a people before a place. All right. The people were made for the land, not the other way around. All right. Now we can go. Whoops. Keep doing that. Now we can go to. Got to start all over again. Salakia. Tomorrow. This is Jeremiah 15:5. All these other nations come over here. Oh, before we go here, maybe that was the Spirit. All right. Maybe it was. This is First Maccabees 2 and 10. Talking about these other nations. It says, what? It's answering a question. It's rhetorical. It says, what nation has not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? Talking about Israel. And that's exactly my point. Everybody, every other nation, all right, has had us in slavery, has capitalized off of our suffering, all right, as they still do to this day. All right, we're under the curses. Deuteronomy 28 chapter is the Murphy's Law for the Israelites, plain and simple. An identifier, you might have a few nations that, a select few, maybe a couple, could actually apply to, but for every last one, it's only one people. All right, both northern and southern kingdoms, the Israelites, and identifies them. And it even says that in Deuteronomy. Let's get that real quick about these curses clean. 28. And of course, it says, and it shall come to pass, Deuteronomy 28 and 1, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh thy power. Let's go into that real quick. Diligently. Strong's H8085. Shemai. Same as here. Listen, obey. All right. To hear with attention or interest. To understand. All right. To consent, agree. All right. To obey. Simple as that. If we were to obey, let's go back again. Deuteronomy 28 and 1, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently, obey, it says, unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh thy power, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Most High Yahweh thy power, no one else's, will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. Doesn't sound like everybody's going to be on par with each other as an equal, all right? 2, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh thy power. But when we skip down here, it's a warning, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I commanded this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Okay? Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. No matter where you go on this planet, they're going to follow you. All right? Cursed be thy basket and thy store. You're not going to prosper. Whoops. All right? Let's see. 25. The Most High Yahweh shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. All right. It says, and thou shalt grope at noonday. 29. It's the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. All right. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. No MLK, no Malcolm X, no Marcus Garvey, none of these. Nat Turner. Nobody, all right, until the Lord comes back. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her, like duh. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. I brought it up before. There's an expression in the South. It says, "No more fattening frogs for snakes." All right, you're doing the work as it implies here, and other people take credit. All right, what did Edom do to so-called white men during slavery? All those inventions weren't his. All right, you can look at Thomas Edison. It was Latimer that made him what he is. He took the credit for it. All right. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. There was a scene in 12 Years a Slave where uh, the Israelite woman, they took her children, they slaved, and that was common, you know, uh, sold the children right from under her. All right, and she just crying, kept crying and crying to the point where uh, Solomon, he just said, like, damn, it just got on his nerves. All right. Uh, let's see. 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword. Nigger, coon, darky, whatever else have you. All right. And an astonishment. These people are fucked up. Never mind that you made them that way. All right. But you're just an instrument of the Most High when it comes down to it. King David even talking about that. All right. When you go into Psalms, the 10th chapter. All right. Let's see. And get to one that I was talking about in the beginning. Oh, everybody else prospers when they come over here. Verse 43. It says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Here it goes, 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou, what do we read in Deuteronomy 28, verse 1? It says, because thou servest not, in verse 15, because thou servest not the Most High Yahweh with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Most High Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Who is that identifying? Does that sound like the Edomites, the great pretenders over there in the land of Israel now? No. All right, so let's get back to the article here. All right, again, we're talking about these assheads that these criminals that these Edomites worship, all right, pretty much as demigods. And this is what Trump, make America great again, all right? So let's see, move this back up here. All right. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Abraham Lincoln. Reasonable people can agree to disagree as to whether Lincoln should be included in this group of racists. Both sides can be aware of the full record, yet disagree as to whether he meant what he said or why he did what he did. Famously remembered for the Emancipation Proclamation, which is the biggest joke ever, which freed the slaves, which it didn't. When you understand emancipate, again, go with this. Got to look at the synonyms, and they play word games with you. These people are masters at that. Of course, they're master liars and manipulators. I'm talking about Esau, Edom, so-called white people. The synonym you must pay attention to is transfer. And that's exactly what happened. We were in chattel slavery, private ownership. All that did, that police action was the Civil War. All right, you got to remember, all wars are bankers' wars. All right, so that's all that happened. They wouldn't allow these Southerners to make all this free money and potentially be on a level with them. No. So the slaves became wards Let's look that word up. Wards of the state. That's all it was. Let's see, ward. Here's a ward. The action or process of guarding. This is from Merriam-Webster. And that's just as the apostles did videos several years ago about America being an open-air prison for the Israelites. And that's exactly what it is. We are wards of the government, all right? The state of being under guard, especially custody. This is where you get the basis for warden as the warden, all right? Let's see. That's it on that. You should get it, all right? So let's go back to the article. It said, first of all, he only freed some of the slaves, those within the states that seceded from the Union. If you were a slave in Kentucky, Missouri, Maryland, Delaware, or states north, okay, they were just as much a slave as before. The Emancipation Proclamation had two main purposes: to disrupt the southern states' economy, what I just say, and to keep France and Britain from siding with the South. Those countries had previously outlawed slavery within their borders and would have problems siding with the Confederate States on moral grounds, though they were more important to them as trade partners. On moral grounds. I thought this was supposed to have been, that city on the hill, but like I said at the beginning, a bunch of criminals and lowlifes came over here. You have to, for those of you, we were always taught about the Puritans and all this shit. All right, no, these were pieces of shit that came over here. Lincoln is also famous for the series of debates he had with Stephen Douglas. All right. Over a series of debates across the state of Illinois, he said a number of things about slaves and so-called black people. He says, and this is what he said: I will say here, while upon this subject, that I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. Did you hear that? I'll say it again. I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. I have no purpose to introduce political and social equality between white and black races. There is a physical difference between the two, which in my judgment will probably forever forbid their living together upon the footing of perfect equality. So why were we always taught to revere this piece of shit? All right, and they try to make you feel guilty. Well, Lincoln freed the slaves, so you should be grateful. I mean, we got to get out of here, all right? And this is, more and more of the lies are coming out here. I didn't mean for this video to go this long, Salakia, but hey, it's the spirit. And in so much as it becomes a necessity that there must be a difference. And there is, that's biblical. I, as well as Judge Douglas, am in favor of the race to which I belong having the superior position. And this piece of shit was a fake Jew. All right. I agree with Judge Douglas. He is not my equal in many respects, certainly not in color, perhaps not in moral or intellectual endowment. I do not now or ever did stand pledged against the admission of any more slave states into the Union. I do not stand today pledged to the abolition of slavery in the District of Columbia. I do not stand pledged to the prohibition of slave trade between the different states. I have never hesitated to say, and I do not now hesitate to say, that I think under the Constitution of the United States, the people of the southern states are entitled to a congressional fugitive slave law. I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races. And there was an applause. That I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office, nor to intermarry with Edomites, And I will say, in addition to this, that there is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. And in so much as they cannot so live, while they do remain together, there must be a position of superior and inferior. And I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. I say upon this occasion, I do not perceive that because the white man, Edomite, is to have a superior position, the Negro should be denied everything. I do not understand that because I do not want a Negro woman for a slave, I must necessarily want her for a wife. Cheers and laughter. My understanding is that I can just let her alone. I am now in my 50th year, and I certainly never have had a black woman for either a slave or a wife. So it seems to me quite possible for us to get along without making either slaves or wives of Negroes. I will add to this that I have never seen, to my knowledge, a man, woman, or child who was in favor of producing a perfect equality, social and political, between Negroes and white men. The right of property in a slave is distinctly and expressly affirmed in the Constitution of the United States. Therefore, nothing in the Constitution or laws of any state can destroy the right of property in a slave. There's much more, but I think you get the point. Those supporting Lincoln say he was a politician and, like any other, had to say what he bullshit. All right? He says, I prefer to take him at his word. Exactly. Teddy Roosevelt. He said, I started researching this with no idea what I'd find in Teddy's record. The whole premise of the story could have crumbled with the existence of a good man. Teddy Roosevelt didn't let me down, though. He was who I thought he was. Roosevelt was upset Hawaii wasn't admitted as a state earlier than it was. He wanted the Pacific Naval Base to establish an outpost to conquer the Philippines. It was a crime against the United States. It was a crime against white civilization not to annex it 2.5 years ago. Teddy was an equal opportunity hater, although he did have respect for those he considered good warriors, who he gave permission to run wild throughout Asia until the quote-unquote yellow bastards attacked us. Many of the long-standing anti-American attitudes in Korea, Japan, China, and Russia, who Teddy didn't view as white enough, were a result of treaties Roosevelt broke. They didn't teach that in school, did they? Nope. Roosevelt's betrayal of Japan played a role in their later attack on Pearl Harbor. There's a book called The Imperial Cruise. It's a good book to get into. I forget the author's name, but it talks about that because I believe his daughter's name was Elizabeth, and she was very popular with, the American women. She was a celebrity, all right? And it goes into how just arrogant and rude, all right, these people were. And hey, she was a whore. She was married to a senator. I can't remember off the top the name, but she was sleeping around, and it got out. It says Roosevelt betrayed Cuba, Japan, Russia, Korea, and the Philippines. He prided himself as being a hard worker. He must have been to get all that in, all right? It's ironic that the sculptor of Mount Rushmore moved directly from memorializing Confederate generals to American presidents who shared many of the same views. If America gave a true depiction of its history, maybe others invoking their name might reconsider some of the same actions. Damn. Wow. He went in. All right. Let's get some of the comments. If there are any. Here we go. Yep. Scott. Oh, he got 24 replies. He says, who wants to destroy America and kiss my ass? Stop destroying buildings, monuments, people, just because you think they're racist. All right? Wallace Simpson says, he who doesn't know about history will repeat it. All of you came and stole the land, including the blacks. The 10th Cavalry, black troops, drove the Cherokee tribe from their lands along the Trail of Tears, raping and killing all along the way. So come off of it. All right. Scott responds, never said I was a white man. I'm an American who's tired of all the race games being played. All right. User 3743. Okay. Whenever you drive by it, be a proud white man to tell your son and daughter about what it stands for. Be proud of your heritage and claim it. Snowman said, laugh my ass off. Oh, man. Chuck 100 says, white people already destroyed America. Oh. Mm. Ron Jackson gets on to the point, says, addressed to Scott, and you are the one who doesn't want the truth, unless you are calling the author a liar. All these examples are things you want hidden. If you were so proud of this, why would you be upset about facts? Do you think that only the good parts of history should be remembered and gloss over the mistreatment and bigotry? Of course you do. And I'm going to end it right there. All right. Once again, we keep um, suggesting, all right, our people come out of this the slavery mindset, all right, and trying to stay here in this piece of shit ass country, all right. It's done nothing but been the bane of our existence, all right, as a people. This is Micah 2 and 10. It says, arise ye and depart, all right, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted, all right. It shall destroy you. Look at our people, all right. Not these selective examples, I put it that way, all right, that'll dangle before your eyes, all right. And most of our people, because they're idols, all right, these celebrities and such, athletes, all right. Even with a sore destruction. Let me read it again. This is Micah chapter 2, verse 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you even with a sore destruction. All right. And I had mentioned earlier, this is another thing that's, oh man, this is a beautiful time to be alive, to see the downfall of our enemies. All right. So this is Psalm 64 and 8. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. Again, people that image is being destroyed, all right, of America's goodness, all right. This is first, wait a minute, I lost my train of thought now. Dadgummit, what was I going to get? Oh, this is Sirach, or Ecclesiastes chapter 25, verse 7. And it says, there be 9 things which I have judged in mine heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue, a man that hath joy of his children, which we do not, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemies. And that's the time period we're in now. These curses are being transferred to our enemies. Deuteronomy 30, verse 7, all right? And it's a beautiful thing to see, all right? For, again, I did not mean for this to go on this long, but let's go back to the article once again. Of course, I'll provide the link. All right, it's goodmenproject.com. Let me see who the author is, by William Spivey. All right, he went in. All right, so with that, once again, call halal Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Rukar Kodash. Double honors once again to the Apostles' Great Millstone, told me his truth and who rule well. Salutations to Akim. All right, they're out there on the highways and byways pushing this truth, all honesty and sincerity. All right, trying to wake up the remaining hopefully elect. All right, so with that, Shalom and Abad Babal.